Alright, let's try this again.
BLEH! They've come to suck your blood! BLEH!
We don't all sound like that.
BLEH!
That's it. I'm out.
Hello, welcome back to Gamebox, show where we take a look at games yesteryear. And today, we'll be taking a look at a game from the PlayStation 1 era. A game that, quite frankly, I didn't even know existed until I started doing research for the game that I was originally going to do a video on, which turned out to be this game's sequel. A little game called Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, which I will be referring to as Blood Omen because that is one long title to keep saying. Developed by Silicon Knights and published by Crystal Dynamics, with Activision taking care of distribution. Another thing I learned while doing my research was the clash between Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics. So yeah, let's jump into that mess real quick. Blood Omen was going to be a release for the 3DO called The Pillars of Nosgoth. There's even concept art for the original idea. Thank you, NeoGAF. Blood Omen will be the first and only project the three companies will work on together. However, due to the lackluster release of the 3DO, The Pillars of Nosgoth would instead be planned for the PlayStation 1. The original concept for Blood Omens was very ambitious, trying to blend an epic story with the role-playing genre, something that is commonplace nowadays. Back then it was still seen as very new. One of the inspirations for Blood Omen was the Wheel of Time novels. These aren't mine, these are my brother's, that nerd. Dennis Dyack, the former president of Silicon Knights, described Blood Omen as a game which adults would want to play, and as an adult, I can say he's kind of right about that. Once a partnership was formed between the three companies, signs of trouble started to show its head. Allegations arose stating that Crystal Dynamics was overstepping their boundaries as publishers, even going as far as trying to extort the IP from the original creators. Though from the Crystal Dynamics side, they saw Blood Omen was in trouble and in need of a massive overhaul and reworking. Crystal Dynamics even flew some staff up to Canada to assist with the project. There were many changes to Blood Omen, including character names and dialogue. The game eventually had seen the bright lights of success. However, since an agreement was signed back in February 16, 1994, it was Crystal Dynamics who held the rights to Kain, including any possible sequels. Later, more allegations came to light, stating that Crystal Dynamics misrepresented themselves as the sole developers of Blood Omen. Blood Omen was released on November 1, 1996 in the US for the PlayStation 1, and in August 31, 1997 for PC, also being released in 97 for the same consoles in Europe. Silicon Knights had 3 games prior to Blood Omen, those being Cyber Empires in 1994 for the Amiga, Atari, and DOS, Fantasy Empires in 1993, and Dark Legions in 1994, both for DOS, and 4 games after, those being Eternal Darkness in 2002 and Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes in 2004, both for the GameCube, to Human in 2008, a game which would land Silicon Knights in a very messy lawsuit, which was for Xbox 360, and finally X-Men's Destiny for the Xbox 360, PS3, Wii, and Nintendo DS. In Blood Omen, players take control of Kain, a nobleman who is ambushed and murdered by some assassins. A necromancer named Mortanius offers Kain a chance for revenge, which Kain takes wholeheartedly. So now, Kain is on a quest for vengeance, and he is out for blood.
I had crossed death for this moment. My mind was empty save for one thought. I would kill. There is no greater release than that from vengeance sated. With my assassins dead, my quest was over.
He just killed them all. Damn, that was fast. Okay, cool. Game over, I guess. Hey, welcome to the end of the video. I'm kidding. Totally an original joke. Alright, back to the story. Mortanius tells Kain that the men who killed him were but tools. He also tells Kain to head to the Pillars of Nosgoth, a location that is tied to the health of the world. Upon arriving to the Pillars, Kain meets Ariel, the Balance Guardian, who also happened to be murdered by an unknown traitor within a group of sorcerers called the Circle of Nine. The Circle is also tied to the conditions of the Pillars. However, the Circle becomes corrupt, which in turn corrodes the Pillars. Kain is given the task of taking out the Circle in order to restore the balance back to the world. Blood Omen is a top-down action-adventure dungeon crawler. Kain can swing a sword with the best of them. Kain has numerous weapons to swing to the faces of his enemies. There's the Iron Sword, the basic weapon Kain starts with, the spiked mace, a heavy-hitting weapon that allows Kain to stun his enemies, which in turn will allow him to feed. BLEH! This also grants Kane the ability to smash stone pillars. The axes, a fast swinging weapon, like the mace, the axes also have a use outside of combat. They let Kane channel his inner lumberjack and chop down any trees that are blocking his path. They also disable Kane's use of magic. Oh, the axes also lock Kane into a spinning move. It works, but it looks goofy as hell. I found myself avoiding them unless I absolutely needed to use them. There's the flame sword, a weapon that swings as fast as the iron sword, but with the added bonus of fire damage, which will sometimes work against Kane if he's low on health, by burning away the enemy before he can feed. BLEH! And finally, the Soul Reaver, the most powerful weapon in the game. Its only caveat is that it uses your magic, and once that's gone, I found it to be pretty useless. And like the axes, the Soul Reaver disables Kane's use of magic, and just like the axes, I found myself using them very sparingly, or for boss fights. Behold! Kane also has various flavors of sparkles to explodify his enemies. Spells include Sanctuary, which teleports Kane back to the crypt to rest and lick his wounds. Crypt will partially refill Kane's health, something I never noticed as I only stayed long enough to save and I peaced out. And apparently this spell becomes unavailable later in the game, something I also didn't notice. The Light spell, a spell that lets Kane view his surroundings much better, something I didn't realize till my third dungeon. Energy Bolt, an energy shot that fires in a straight line. This is useful for activating switches that are out of reach. You can use it offensively, but I don't think I ever did. There's Stun, a spell that lets Kane stun his enemies so he can feed on them much faster. BLEH! Incapacitate, a spell that allows Kane to freeze his enemies, making them much easier to defeat. This is a spell I don't think I ever used. And Blood Gout. This spell allows Kane to shoot out a projectile of his own blood at the enemy. However, if he misses, that means that precious life was wasted with that move, so think before you sling. There's also Repel. This spell would become Kane's best friend in the later game. This spell blocks Kane from any and all damage for a short period of time. There's Blood Shower. This spell lets Kane drain the blood of up to 4 enemies on screen. This will refill Kane's health, but the player will need to be careful. If any undead enemies are nearby, this will present the possibility of being poisoned. And finally, Spirit Rack. This spell can be seen as an upgraded version of Control Mind, allowing Kane to control an enemy, living or undead. Oh, we are not done. Kane can also use objects to aid in combat. These items include the Heart of Darkness. This item acts as a gains health restoration and respawn item. This forces the player to have to choose whether to use the item, which will restore a good portion of health, but it will also take away a potential respawn they may need in the future, or let themselves die and use the respawn, but restore a small amount of health. And sometimes, that choice is made for you. Flay, an item that explodes enemies and leaves behind a bloody skeleton. Implode, this item once it hits an enemy, will cause them to implode, leaving nothing behind. This is a very useful item for the later enemies. Just a few hits and... There's Antitoxin, an item that heals Kane of any poison he may acquire. Energy Bank, an item that grants Kane an unlimited magic pool to pull from. This is another item that Kane will become best friends with later in the game. Slow Time, this one is kind of self-explanatory, slows down time. And Pentilish of Tarot, this item will have Kane cast a line of cards overhead, and the Wheel of Death will roll, resulting in a cascade of blood and major game slowdown. And finally, my personal favorite, Font of Putrescence. Once this bad boy hits, it will liquefy the enemy, leaving a puddle of goo. And the best part, the puddle lingers for a while, meaning the player can lead any enemy back to the puddle and to their gooey fate. The other cool thing about the items is that if a player misses an item, they can pick it up later in the game. Now besides spells and steel, Kane has several sets of armor to deal with any damage. The iron armor, like the iron sword, this is Kane's starting armor. The bone armor, an armor set that deters any attacks from any undead enemies. The flesh armor, which on a side note just sounds like another word for skin, an armor set that allows Kane to drain the blood of any enemy he hits. But with this, the player does need to be careful as it does share the same risk as Blood Shower, and it also has the added bonus of making Kane look like Lord Zed. The Chaos armor. This armor set deals any damage dealt to Kane by an enemy back towards the attacking enemy. And finally, the Wraith armor. This is the best armor in the game. Any damage dealt to Kane will be split between his health and magic. There is the usual health and magic refilling items scattered around the world. Kane can also pick up blood vials and triangle runes that upgrade Kane's overall health and magic capacity. But wait, there's more. Kane can also change in different forms he will be able to use to navigate the world. There's the vampire form, Kane's default form, the wolf form, This form allows Cain to move faster and jump over certain obstacles. I also noticed the hitbox for the wolf form was a bit strange, and I couldn't get the jump to work sometimes. The bat form, a form that allows fast travel to any unlocked bat beacons. I said bat beacon. The mist form, a form that allows Cain to travel past certain objects. It also allows Cain to avoid any physical damage. Well, most physical damage. It becomes very useful in the swamp section. And finally, the disguise/beguile form. I lumped these two together because they're essentially the same thing. This form allows Cain to walk amongst them squishy humans without being attacked. In Blood Omen, dungeon crawling is the name of the game. It was meant to play like The Legend of Zelda in terms of letting the player roam around the game world. The player can find plenty of secrets scattered around, which include blood fountains. These grant Cain perks like strength or immunity to forms of water. Oh yeah, stay away from the wet stuff. It hurts Cain. There are also spirit forges, a place that Cain can trade blood for items. Something I never could get to work properly, so it just took my health. Gee, thanks. But beyond that, Cain will be walking around getting into plenty of shenanigans. Whenever Cain sees a boss level, he can travel there via the bat form. Something I didn't know and ended up backtracking for no reason. And trust me, you'll be doing a lot of backtracking. Some of the dungeons will even let Cain know what prize is at the end of the dungeon. However, the backtracking does add a little to the charm. Kind of. Cain is able to kill NPCs for their lifeblood. This actually was a point that Silicon Knights was going for. They wanted the player to walk in a world where they had to kill innocents to survive. Wanted to go for a less heroic figure. Speaking of blood, there are different types that Cain has to deal with, each one offering different perks and debuffs. There's red blood, this restores health, blue blood gives magic, black blood, which damages Cain, and green blood, which poisons Cain. The bosses. Well, we've come back to good old Easy Street. Once you have the repel spell, it's all over. At one point, they even have you fighting two bosses at the same time. As you gotta pay extra for that kind of action. But they were still easy as balls. The biggest hazard during the fight was the stupid puddles of water that one of them kept spawning. Hell, even the final boss was a chump. Repel has no equal. Even when I replayed the final boss, I didn't even use repel. That's how easy it was. Blood Omen doesn't look too bad overall. It's pretty easy to find the pathways, though sometimes it did get kinda dark to see, but that's what the light spell's for. The music was okay. To be honest, it didn't really stand out. In fact, I actually thought it was one long song. I will say I'm not too fond of the town of Avernus. This was because the town was fashioned like a maze, and it's inhabited by some of the tougher enemies in the game. The goal of this section is to get to the cathedral in the middle of the town, and if you die, you get loaded back into the save point at the start of the section. So, you may be asking yourself, why am I watching this sweet Yakuza Kiwami 2 footage? Well, my game capture program decided to take a crap and render my footage of my Avernus run unusable, and I refuse to do that section again. So, yeah, Kiwami 2 footage. So, all in all, is this a game you need to go out and play? I may give a soft no. Why? Well, let's start with the bad. For starters, the loading screens. There are so many of them. You want to check your items? Load screen! You want to enter that dungeon and unearth its secrets? Load screen! That guy you took control of just died? Load screen! They aren't long, but they're frequent enough to be aggravating. Sometimes the wolf form jumping mechanic didn't work. The spirit forges never worked for me as well. I even had to consult a walkthrough for some parts. And there was no easy way to switch weapons or swap out items or spells. In order to do so, you had to go to your inventory menu. And you know what that means. Load screen! The fast travel map was also very strange to navigate as well. You had to press up and down to change the bat beacon locations, and left and right to change the available boss levels. Why? I don't know. Sure, it sounds kind of easy, but I didn't know that and was super confused when I first popped open the menu. Now for the good, the exploration was fun. It was cool to stumble onto a secret or a stockpile of items. The combat wasn't too bad either, though the hitboxes did get a bit wonky, or sometimes the enemies would get stuck on Cain, making any sword swings useless. Wait, we were on the good. There was some time travel that changed the type of enemies Cain will face. Cain has a cool name? Okay, so the bad kind of outweighs the good. But if you have the patience for all that, I say give Blood Omen a try. Now, I did use some cheat codes to refill my health and magic at times, but that was only because I ran out of the Heart of Darkness item. So, yeah. Here they are if you want them. Yay! Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm getting a bit thirsty. Ah! I just wanted a glass of water! Hey, welcome to the end of the video. I thank you for making it this far. Now, there was a second part of the whole Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics rivalry, but it does tie directly into the development of the sequel of this game. So yeah, I'll get into that when I do the sequel. Till then, you know what to do, spread the awesome, and I will see you next time. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I have Instagram, Twitter, which I will start using more. The links will be in the description, or just look up Shoot the Penguin, all one word, on either of those sites. Those will be used for more behind the scenes stuff and random stuff, so yeah. Bye!